says we're live.
It does. We're live.
All right.
All right. So we're going to set up a Moodle workshop here. So do you want to share your screen and I can walk you through there?
Okay.
And if anybody is watching, a Moodle workshop is like the ultimate peer and self-assessment tool. So we really like to see students and teachers trying this out.
All right. So I'm just going to my sample course, just so we can set this up in there. Of course, I'm having a hard time finding my sample course. Oh, here it is. Because it's not called sample, it's called test course. Okay. So here's my test course. I'm going to turn my editing on.
Okay. And I have you presenting to everyone so that it's going to cover the whole screen. So.
Okay. So let's just go down and add a topic.
And you're doing that because you don't want to put it in one of the other
existing
topics?
I don't have anything to put it in right now because, like I said, this is just my sample course. So, okay. So I'm going to add an activity or a resource, and I'm going to choose the workshop. So a little background about this is that I will show the students a quick video on gravity, and then we're going to write about it. And the kids have never used the workshop module before, so it'll be their first experience. So we're just kind of starting with something, not too difficult, but just so that they can get a hang of using the workshop module.
That's a good idea. That's usually what I suggest too, is anytime somebody's getting started with a workshop, start small.
Yes.
Because you don't want to have like the big 5-paragraph essay as the first time that they try this thing out that they've never used before. So, and it also helps to scaffold.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I'm just going to give it, the name will be. Okay, so they're only going to write a paragraph. So.
Okay. Now the description is interesting because a lot of times I put the prompt there, but there's also another place where you can put the prompt. So the description could be, you can just describe what their experience is going to be, or things like, what the learning targets are, or something like that. That's what they're going to see when they first click on the workshop.
Okay.
So. And that also might be a good place to put the link to the video that you're going to show them.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one. I think I've seen that one before.
Whoops. Find out where I'm at here. Okay. All right.
Okay. Looks good.
Let me make sure this is a link. I'm pretty sure it is, but it doesn't hurt to make sure. Open it in a new window. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And I like that. I didn't used to do that, actually, opening the link in the new window until you started doing it. And then I realized that's probably really good for navigating so that it keeps the tab open and stuff like that as you navigate.
When you're working with elementary kids, you can lose them very easily. So we try not
to. Right. Okay. All right. So the next part is the grading strategy. And that's a really important setting. That's where you're going to probably, I'm guessing, change that to a rubric.
Yes, we are.
And you notice there are lots of other options. Rubric is the one that I think is the best and that I use all the time. So go ahead and select rubric.
Okay.
And then the other two things that you want to pay attention to are the grade for submission and the grade for assessment. Remember that they get 2 grades for this.
Yes.
So the grade for the submission is like their grade for what they turn in.
Okay.
Okay. And then the grade for assessment is their grade for grading. Right now, it adds up to 100. You could make it add up to 100 if you want, or you can make it whatever you want. But there are going to be two separate grades in the grade book, one for the submission and one for the assessment. So it's really, I mean, it's completely up to you as to how you set that up.
So are these in percentage points or are these in actual just points? So this looks like
actual point grade.
So this one paragraph right now is worth 100 points?
Nope. The one paragraph is worth 80 points. And then their grading of the paragraph is going to be worth 20 points.
So this whole assignment is worth 100 points.
Yes, but keep in mind, it's still going to be two separate grades in the grade book. So it really, I mean, it just happens to add up to 100 here. I don't know why. It just, must be the defaults that are set. It does not have to add up to 100.
For one paragraph, we're going to go with 10 points.
Okay.
For this.
Now, the thing that you want to pay attention to is like the proportionality of the two grades. Students kind of get the impression that things don't matter when they're worth fewer points, even though, it's completely arbitrary anyway. So I would keep it, something like that, or maybe even closer, maybe 10 and 10 and,
So
whatever.
I should do a 10 and 10, you think,
for the first time? Yeah, you might want to, just so they see that, assessing is just as important as doing the actual work.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so we're at 10 and 10.
Okay. And then the decimal places in grades, there's a chance that they're going to, when they do grade, they're going to get, maybe a 2.5 or an 8.7 or something like that. So we want to have at least one decimal point probably.
Okay.
Okay. Submission settings is the next thing. That's where you're going to actually put the prompt.
Okay.
Okay. So tell them exactly what it is that you want them to respond to.
And I did write it earlier, so paste it here.
And then what I usually do is I give a little instruction to click the button below to get started. And I think the button says start preparing submission. Okay. Now, the easiest way to grade and to actually turn in their work is to have them type it into this text box that you see. So you don't want them probably to attach any files, although that could be an option. But for now, what you probably want to do is change the maximum number of submission attachments to 0.
Okay.
Okay. And then you can also, you can specify allowed file types and stuff like that. If you want them to turn in a Word document or something like that, you could specify that, but you don't have to.
Okay.
The late submissions is the next important thing. That is going to allow someone who's not there or who didn't turn it in on time to still turn it in, even though you are now grading and all the students are grading work. Okay. I like to check that box just because it saves me time and aggravation later to come back here and check that box just in case somebody's missing. Okay.
Makes sense.
So then assessment settings. This is, I'm not sure why they have this here, but I usually say something like below you will see, 5 samples of your peers' writing. Okay. Click the button that says assess to begin grading their work on the, based on the rubric.
Okay.
So
I think 5 is a good number.
And that's the default too. By default, it will give them each 5 of their peers' work.
Okay. Click what?
Click assess.
Do you think that's good? Do you think
you might want to say, using the rubric that's provided or something like that.
That makes sense. Okay.
All right. Now, if you want the kids to be able to self-assess based on the rubric, and keep in mind, that's going to factor into their grade for grading and all that kind of stuff, and into their own grade. If you want that option later on, you want to check this box.
I do.
Okay. The next thing is feedback. Right now, by default, feedback is, notice, enabled and optional. So they're going to get a little text box like what you've been typing in underneath the rubric where they can give feedback to the student, that's feedback that's not necessarily on the rubric.
Okay.
Right? So what I usually do is I make it enabled and required. And then as part of the assessment instructions up above, I let them know, please provide one piece of actionable feedback or something like that in addition to the grade. And what we've done by, what you did by making it enabled and required is they will not be able to save their grade until they type something in that box.
And that's below the rubric?
Yep, that'll be below the rubric.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's go back down. And then the conclusion, I'm not really sure what the purpose of that is, other than to say, thank you for participating. This was to help you, become a better writer or to think about gravity a little bit better. And you may want to say, okay, this is the next step. This is what I want you to do next once you're finished. Okay.
All right. We're just going to keep it at that for now.
That's good. Keep it simple. And then the next part is example submission. So if you want to give them examples to grade before they start writing or before they start grading,
okay,
you can do that.
Okay. We're not going to do that this time.
Yeah, for the first one, I don't think that's necessary, but that's, this is where you would do it.
Okay.
And then if you did provide it, you could change the mode of examples assessment. If you do check that box, you notice that you get that option. It has to be assessed before they submit or before they start assessing.
Okay.
Okay. So, but yeah, uncheck that. So availability, I like to control this manually. So I wouldn't, set any date there. You may want to just verbally tell them, it's due on February 6th or whatever. Okay.
Well, they're going to do it the day I'm there. So.
During class. Okay.
Yep.
And then group mode, it's all going to be one group. So I would just leave it at no groups. And then the only other thing that you probably want to pay attention to is the activity completion.
We actually do have 3 different groups in the class.
Do? Okay.
Yeah. So now, we're going to want to go into separate groups, right?
Well, so what this is going to do is if you make it separate groups, they're only going to be able to submit and assess within their group.
Right. That's what I want.
That's what you want. Okay.
Yep.
So go ahead and choose separate groups then.
Okay.
And then activity completion. I don't know how you have that set up for the rest of the activities in the course, but you could.
I can't remember how she has it in hers. So I believe she has completion tracking turned on, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as not.
Okay. So right now they can mark it themselves. Yeah, just say do not indicate.
Okay.
And then scroll down a little bit and save and display, the middle button. Okay, so notice along the top there, you've got your 5 phases. Okay. Right now we're in the setup phase. So if they clicked on it, the only thing that they could see is the assignment description.
Okay.
So they wouldn't see the prompt because you put the prompt in the submission instructions.
Right.
So, and then also notice in that that first phase, you've got 4 check marks. 2 of them are green and 2 of them are still like a shaded gray. Okay. So one of those is edit assessment form. So let's click on that next. That needs to be done next. And that's your rubric.
Okay.
And I think we talked about how you were just going to put one criterion from that rubric on there. So go ahead and paste the description in there.
So just this part.
Yep.
Okay.
And you might actually.
I'm going to take out the formatting.
Yeah. There you
go.
Okay. There you go. Looks good. And then as you
make this a little bit bigger.
That's a good idea.
Although it didn't seem to work. Could be because I copied and pasted.
Could be.
Or I could just do it manually because it's just one word.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So as you scroll down, then you're going to have a spot for each one of the descriptors.
Okay.
Right.
So is it important to keep a 0?
It is important to keep a 0, yes. Anytime you use a rubric in Moodle, it likes to have a 0 descriptor. So,
okay. So
I don't know, how does that fit into your grade? Doesn't look like there's a 0 on the rubric. So what you could do is just in that box, like we normally do, just put NA or something like that.
Or not applicable. Okay.
Okay. And then, yep.
So now this would be a 1.
Right. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. And then, yep, keep on going.
2.
Oh, sorry.
Can I add more than 3?
Watch your step there with the corner. All right, good.
Can I add more than 3?
You can add more than 3, yes.
Okay, because I'm going to need 4.
Now there's a really tricky way to do it, and I'll show you how.
Okay, so I need 1 more.
Okay, so hit save and continue editing.
This reminds me of the question type in
Yes.
drag and drop on image.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
So there's your 4th descriptor.
That wasn't bad at all.
Nope.
Totally doable. Okay.
All right.
Now, can I get rid of, do I have to get rid of this or can I leave
just
it?
leave it. Just leave it blank. If you leave it blank, it will not appear on the rubric.
Okay. And then I suppose if I wanted to put something else here, I could, but
you could.
For this, for all intents and purposes right here, we're just going to use 1.
Yep. That looks right. Okay. So let's go with save and close.
What is rubric configuration?
Oh, that allows you to show the rubric as a list. So just, vertically.
Okay.
Or a grid, which is actually probably how you want it to appear.
Okay.
That's as a grid. That's what students and teachers are most familiar with.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and hit save and close now. Okay. And then the last thing, that last check mark is the only thing left is to switch to the next phase.
All right.
So
we're ready to do that then.
Yep. And you can do that by clicking there or the little circle that's up next to the submission phase up above.
Right here?
Yep, but next to the submission phase. One over.
Oh.
There you go.
Gotcha.
That'll do the same thing.
Okay. So continue.
Continue. Yep. So now the way it is, if a student clicks on this, they can now submit their work. So they can, click that button that says start preparing submissions.
Okay.
Okay. Now, later on, after they've started submitting, you need to allocate the submission. So that's not something that you necessarily want to do right now because you don't know who's going to be there.
Right.
And stuff like that. Okay. But so you want to click allocate submissions to take a look at that so that, you can start planning for that.
I don't have any students in this course. So will that be?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, let's see what settings we can get to though.
Okay. So allocate submissions.
Yeah. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you probably want to randomly allocate the first time around. So click random allocation. Okay, and then some important things about this. Number 1, the number of reviews is set to 5 by default. Okay.
Okay.
So that means that each student, and notice the next dropdown says per submission, every student that submits is going to get 5 of their peers.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you change it to per reviewer, it doesn't matter whether they've turned anything in or not. If they're a student in your class, they can still get 5 of their peers' work. Okay.
Okay.
So that might be important, especially if you have, students that aren't going to turn their work in or are going to be absent, and you still want them to have that experience of assessing with everybody else. I would set it to 5 per reviewer.
Okay.
And then when you do this, I always check the box that says remove current allocations because it just kind of resets everything.
Okay.
You want to check the box that says participants can assess without having submitted anything if you're going to be okay with them grading their peers even though they haven't turned anything in.
Okay.
So again, that might be for the absent student or whatever.
Well, and especially in elementary, kids are, taken out of the room for this, that, and the other thing. So we want to make sure that they can at least do part of it, if not all of it.
Yeah, because otherwise they kind of have to sit there and do nothing or have a different activity, which you don't necessarily want. And then if you do want them to assess themselves, add self-assessment. So their own assessment, I think the way this works is that they get their own to grade and then they get 4 others in addition. So that totals up to 5. And then you would just hit save changes and then it's good to go. And then if you want to make any changes to who is, and notice there you've got no students, but if you hit continue, if you want to make any changes, you can go to manual allocation. And then what you would see is a list of all of your students. And you see on the left, participant is reviewed by. So that's going to be everybody that's grading you. And then participant is reviewer of, that's everybody that you are grading since you are the participant in the middle. So you can delete participants from either one of those. You can add to either column. So, this is a good place to if kids are finishing early, you can give them more to grade. Or if there's a kid that you don't want, Amy Gwiz to review, you can delete that kid from her list.
All right.
Okay. So that's how it works.
Scheduled allocations. What is that?
Scheduled allocations works when you have those dates and times all set up originally. So what it will do is it will go ahead and do that entire process for you if you have it all scheduled. And like I said, I like to manually control the phase switching and stuff like that because so many things can go wrong. You have so many variables and so many factors that are going to change as you do this. So I wouldn't
we'll stick with random.
Yeah.
All righty.
Okay.
So yep.
You're good. So go back in the breadcrumbs at the top, click gravity response paragraph. Okay. And then once you're ready, you can switch to the assessment phase. So after everybody has submitted, and you can see under allocate submissions, you've got 1 expected because you're the only student in this class.
And
then you can see how many have been submitted and how many need to be allocated to someone else. All right. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as the workshop is going on.
Down in here.
Yep.
Okay.
And then once you have, all of the submissions that you expect, you can just switch it to the assessment phase. So.
Okay.
All right.
Very nifty.
And then those other 2 phases are really, you just kind of do that after the students have assessed each other. The grading evaluation phase is where you actually get to calculate the grade for each of the student, for assessing their peers' work.
And
I think we can look at that right now if you want to take a look. I think it'll show us what we need to see.
But I have to switch to it first, right?
No, go ahead and click calculate submission grades.
Yeah, it won't let me.
All right, let's switch to the evaluation phase then. Let's see what it'll let us get to. Okay, so calculate. No, still won't let us. Okay, we must have to wait till we have some assessments done. But this is basically where, I don't know if you remember this. When we look at it, you can set it to anywhere from very strict to very lax. And that's a measure of how close you're requiring the students to be to the average grade in order to get a good grade for assessment. Okay, so we'll just kind of have to imagine that one for now.
Or do a part 2 to our hangout.
We could do that. Which would be a good idea, actually. And then students don't actually, or they're not able to see what they've earned or anything like that until you click close workshop.
Okay.
And then once you click close workshop, then it kind of releases their grades to them. And so they get to see their submission grade and their assessment grade.
All righty.
Okay.
Sounds good. I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I think the kids will like it too. It'll give them a different way to look at somebody else's work. Plus,
Yeah.
the rubric is pretty laid out for them, and they're used to seeing that rubric, so that's
Yeah.
a good thing.
For sure. Yeah, they get familiar with the rubric. The other thing is they kind of get the experience of what it's like to grade. I think we talked about this, how the students in that one class, went up to the teacher and said, I don't know how you do 150 of these every time we turn in a paper, because that's
Exactly.
intense. You actually,
Yes.
they get the kids, the first time they do this, they're really intent on making the right decision about what to click on the rubric and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. So
I think it'll force them to look at their work in a more critical way as well, too, because if they know that they have peers that are looking at it and grading their work, they're going to want to do their best.
That's right. That's right. And that's the advantage to doing it this way. Whereas when a student normally turns in a paper, they're just writing it for the teacher. So, depending on how they feel about the teacher, they may or may not, put a lot of effort into it. So, but if they know that their peers are going to be judging them too, it kind of raises the stakes. So,
yes.
And then on top of that, the thing that I like about it is, a teacher's opinion, even though the teacher is usually the content expert and things like that, um, there are more opinions that matter than just the teacher. So, you kind of give the students a voice when it comes to grading in the classroom, that they wouldn't have otherwise if they're just, kind of turning it in for the teacher. So,
right. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to see what it's like with the 5th graders that I'm going to be working with.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Let me know how it goes.
I will.
Okay.
Thanks
I'll
for
see
your
you.
help.
Sure.